Yeah, recording in progress. Aloha, everybody. Today is September 27th, 2022. This is a KUA Network invitational KOA Call. And today we're lucky to have David from Regent Aircraft to share about his project and what they're proposing. Again, yeah, we're here to learn and exchange mana'o. So we'll hear from David here. See some of his PowerPoint and his video, and then we'll get into questions and kama ilio afterwards. Mahalo David and mahalo everybody for joining. I'm gonna pass it to you, David. You can take it away.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you everybody for taking the time. I'll go straight into the PowerPoint presentation because I think it's easier to understand. I just want to make sure that I do this right. Okay, so Regent Craft is a electric powered sea glider. And part of the reason we think that this is something that should be considered, it eliminates the carbon footprint for inter-island travel. And it creates some other opportunities within the state that I think are good for our people. So Regent Craft is the manufacturer. They're not going to operate this vehicle here. So it's only if Hawaii wants this vehicle here, and we have operators like Mokulele, Hawaiian Airlines, Young Brothers, if they consider utilizing the vehicle. But we want to make sure that we reach out to the communities and we get input. And that's what we've been doing for over a year now. The first vehicle is a smaller vehicle. It's a 12-seater, and it would come out in late 2025, early 26. And it would help serve some of our underserved communities like Molokai, Lanai, and some of the others. The vehicle, it goes underwater, it rides on its hull, and then it lifts up on the hydrofoils and then completely lifts out of the water to go between the islands. The vehicle runs at about 180 miles per hour, so it only is going to take a little bit more time than the conventional aircraft. And its current distance on the current battery power is about 180 miles. But by the time these actually come out in commercial service, we feel that the battery technology is probably going to be up to about 500 miles radius. This is kind of the technology that this was formulated on. Wing and ground effect actually came out in the 60s. The Russians had this vehicle called their Chronoplan. But we're marrying the hydrofoils and then electric power with the batteries. Wing and ground effect is similar to what you see when you see the seagulls gliding over the surface of the ocean. They're gliding on a cushion of air that exists. So as I mentioned, these are the three stages: the float, foil, and fly. It's going to take to lift completely off of the water is only about 350 feet. And then it completely lifts out of the water. There's different types of uses for this vehicle. Of course, passenger service would be one. Freight, which I think might be even more important for our islands because it'll lower the cost of goods dramatically. The cost of running this vehicle compared to a conventional vehicle is about 30% of what a current vehicle costs, conventional aircraft. Sorry guys, I get my dog going crazy. Let him out. Sorry. So the other uses would be for emergency services. So we've talked to each of the counties, their emergency service office, as well as General Hara for overall, because this vehicle could get into areas that cannot be accessed in the event of hurricane, tsunami. This vehicle can, as an example, the vehicle could run from Lehui up into Princeville if the roads are washed out. There's two vehicles. One is the Viceroy, which is a 12-seater. The other is a Monarch. So Mokule's parent company has ordered these vehicles, Southern Airways, but they have a lot of coastal routes along the East Coast. So consideration of bringing this vehicle here is still up in the air based on getting feedback from the community and seeing if the community is interested. Hawaiian has made an investment in Regent and is a part of the design team for the Monarch. And should there be interest, as I mentioned, then there's a possibility of using this vehicle. This will just give you the different configurations within the smaller vehicle. Viceroy, this is a 12-seater in passenger configuration. This would be cargo configuration. And I need to mention that in the process of us going out and talking to people, including young brothers, we found that agricultural groups are looking for a more efficient means to move their goods between islands. I didn't know this, but all of the goods have to come from the neighbor islands, come to Oahu, and then gets transferred and goes out to the other neighbor island. So if you're sending goods from Maui, it comes to Honolulu and then gets repacked on the barge and then goes to Hilo. So that's some of the things that we're faced with locally. Ambulatory care, there's a high cost of ambulatory care and healthcare in general. So this configuration shows ambulatory as well as emergency services. We've been working with NOAA because most of our islands are surrounded by whale sanctuaries and also have bird life. So we're working with NOAA and the University of Hawaii Marine Biology Department to identify avoidance systems. So right now they're looking at both a sonar and an infrared system to make sure that we can avoid any strikes. And again, the strikes would only occur if at all, it would be on the takeoff and the landing. And usually the draft in this vehicle is only 5 feet. So the takeoff area is going to be fairly shallow. So whales not going to be in this area. From a sound standpoint, the vehicle operates at 60 decibels on takeoff. That's going to be the loudest it gets. And then as it's going over the ocean, it'll be at about 50 decibels. This is the timeline for the vehicles. We're right now in a quarter scale prototype testing. They tested both in Tampa, Florida, and now they moved the vehicle up to New Hampshire. We are in the process of building the full scale prototype in 2023. And as I mentioned, late 25 for actual commercial service with the Viceroy, and then 2028 for the Monarch. This is just giving you an example of the quarter scale prototype, and I'll show you a video that will give you a sense of how the vehicle operates. This is just showing our islands. Because the low cost of this vehicle, there's intra-island opportunities as well. Kona to Hilo, Kahului to Lahaina, Kapolei to Honolulu, and as I mentioned, on Kauai, Lehui to Princeville or Hanalei. These are all the organizations that we've been talking to. We talked to all the government officials, and then we started reaching out. We kind of took a look at what Super Ferry did. And so we went to all of the environmental groups to talk to them first. And then we reached out to all the cultural groups. So we've met with Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Polynesian Voyaging Society, yourselves, and we're looking to continue to talk to like Aloha Aina, Economic Futures, and some of the others. These are some of the officials that we've met with over the last year to just share with them about the vehicle and talk about what would be needed in the event people here would like to see that. So we're actually going through a feasibility study right now. SMS Research is reaching out to the general public and key stakeholders and asking them, would they like to see another alternative inter-island transportation that uses renewable energy. And here are some of the people that have partnered with us. As I mentioned, Southern Airways, Mokulele, Hawaiian Airlines has since come on. So unfortunately, I don't have them on here. But there's a lot of ferry systems on the East Coast and in Europe that are looking at adopting this system. And that's it for my PowerPoint, but I wanted to just share a real quick video. So we've been testing this vehicle and it's been going through different phases. It's gone through a phase where it just was foiling, and now we're going beyond the foiling phase.
Five, four, three, two, one. Going. Come left, come left, come left. I got it. Jeffrey. Load.
Okay, I will open up for any questions you might have.
Mahalo, David. Yeah, it's a lot to process. So as far as the process to ask questions, I got a few directly sent to me. If you wanted to ask that way, feel free to do that, or you can raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. Really, this is just a conversation for us to learn about this project. But I'm just gonna start with a few of these questions. David, what is your role in this project? And then a follow-up, why do agricultural goods have to come to Oahu first, and how/why will Regent Craft address that?
So my role in this is really the Regent Craft liaison. So I've been the one that has introduced them to the legislators, and then doing the outreach to the communities. We've done Chamber of Commerce. I'm right now working with all the neighborhood boards on Oahu, and then we're going to go out to the Rotary groups for the neighbor islands. So I've had a background in the hospitality industry. I was with both the airlines and the hotels, and they first came into this thinking that should be the focus. And actually, when I started looking at it and seeing the costs, I think the freight side is actually more beneficial for us here in the state. So going into the question about agriculture, you know, that is the arrangement or routing structure, and it could be facilities and equipment as well that Young Brothers has. Everything hubs out of Oahu. So in talking to some of the larger farms, like on Maui, you have Mahipono. On Oahu, you have Alun Farms, which actually is going to have to move to Kauai because they're converting that ag land into residential area. So now a lot of the produce that we enjoy are going to have to come from the neighbor islands. But what was interesting, and I didn't notice until I started talking to everybody and asking them questions, is, you know, Maui cannot get their produce directly to Hilo and Kona or straight to Kauai. It all has to hub in Oahu, get redistributed, and then back out on freighters or barges to those islands.
Gotcha. Mahalo, David. We'll go to Uncle Damien. You can unmute and ask your question, please.
Hey, good presentation. Thank you. I wanted to ask you, you know, I get several questions. What is the cost per passenger from, say, Honolulu to Kona or Kona to Honolulu? And is there a weight limit per passenger? And if the weather is, if there's a storm, will the craft be able to take off?
Okay. I'm going to start with the last question first. So the aircraft is going to, actually, we don't call it aircraft, we call it vehicle, because it actually is under, the certification process is going to be under the US Coast Guard, and then secondary certification from the FAA. But this vehicle is probably going to operate the same way an aircraft would operate. So if you got high gale winds and stuff like that, it's not going to fly. But ocean conditions, I forgot to mention this, the vehicle will fly 30 feet to 60 feet above the top crest. So like in the channels, we get some big swells, some of the waves break. So this vehicle will run above the crest of those swells. So it could be in the trough of the swell, it could be 60 to 100 feet below. And the vehicle will run. One of the biggest problems with some of the hydrofoils is they kind of go like this with the water, but this will stay at a level and go across. So it would be a nice ride. In terms of cost for the vehicle, right now, we're costing per seat based on purely the operational cost, coming in at about $23 for the neighbor islands. Yeah. And this vehicle, as I mentioned, is probably only going to take about 10 minutes longer, because you don't have all the up and down like you do with the conventional vehicle. This will take off and it'll be about 100 feet above the water and going across. And then what was the other question?
Yeah, is there a weight limit per passenger?
Oh, yeah. No, there is not a weight limit. In fact, in the discussion, when we were talking to the people on Molokai, healthcare is an issue. So the vehicle door was reconfigured even wider to accommodate that. So I believe it's 54 inches or something like that. I should have pointed that out when I was going through the slides.
Yeah, you know, I saw the payload capacity as well. So
Yeah.
is that for the passengers?
It's
The payload capacity?
It's total payload. So this, the smaller vehicle is equivalent to the Cessnas that are flying right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting some more questions, direct questions. Will an environmental impact statement and or section 106 consultation be conducted?
Yeah, in fact, we are going through the feasibility study right now. We have, from the feasibility study, an EIS then has to happen. So we have gotten attorneys involved. Army Corps of Engineers has to be involved so that they can give us recommendations on how to best go about this. But the first phase of the feasibility study that's going out right now is if Hawaii wants an alternative inter-island component. Once that's completed and we have that feedback, then we're going to go into a assessment of the different harbors that could be used, because sea state is a concern, facilities on the dock, access to renewable energy to those docks, and then if it's passenger service, you need parking or you need multi transportation access. So that would be the second phase. And then we go into the EIS once the harbors are identified, where it would be best suited for.
Right on. I guess a follow-up to that is what kinds of harbor facilities and or infrastructure is needed to host this craft? What does that footprint look like?
Yeah, so the commercial harbors are built to handle these large ships. So the only change that we'd have to build something that really comes down to sea level and can adjust with the tides. So that's where, collaboration with Army Corps of Engineers is going to be important. For the most part, we're trying to not put any stakes in the seafloor and try to ride along the existing harbor docks.
Oh, interesting. Okay, Jenny has one in here. Purely operational costs, how much is them added to that 23? I think referring to the cost of that fare.
Yeah, that is going to end up with the operator, whoever decides to operate these vehicles. And they are aware that we are showing the operational cost per seat to the public. We're sharing that information. So, what other costs are added on to that is really going to be the operation costs, staffing and all of that.
Just to have it on the record too, I'm gonna read Auntie Lori's comment on here. The movement of ag products by young brothers is a young brother cost-effective issue. Also bureaucracy. That is why Young Brothers has no competition. Yeah, so just to have that on the recording. I guess in addition, you're talking about the craft flying through the channels and stuff, and potentially thinking about boating or boaters or who not. As far as rules of the road or who has the right of way, is that understood as far as a flying craft or a boat that might be in the way of this Regent craft?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any boats in the way because we're flying well above the surface, but the operation and safety procedures of this vehicle will coincide with Coast Guard regulations.
Oh, got you. Carly Lucas has a question. Is there anything that says the power must come from non-fossil fuel generated energy? And then in addition, how loud is the sonar used to locate wildlife?
I don't have the answer on the sonar. In terms of renewable energy, that was something that came out of the first discussions that we started having with the community, because we were gonna we said we were going to plug into HECO, and immediately the feedback we got was, well, that's not accomplishing what we want to accomplish. And so we made an effort, and we've secured like KIUC on Kauai. Pacific Current is our energy partner that we're looking at. There's other solar partners that we're considering. Clearway has solar farms that we might be able to access. So we're looking at all different types of renewable energy.
Got you. Again, if any of you folks wanted to just unmute, just raise your hand, or literally raise your hand, and then we'll get you some FaceTime. But I'm gonna jump to Kevin's question. Will this craft not present any of the problems previously associated with the super ferry? No threat to marine life?
Yeah, no threat to marine life, and that's why we're working with NOAA. We've actually gone to the whale sanctuary offices on Maui. There are plans for the engineers to actually come out, hopefully in January, to go out on a vessel with them and actually observe. So there's very high sensitivity for any type of marine life and bird. So that's what they're working there. We're actually working with, there are some avoidance systems that the military has that are being considered as well.
Got you. Auntie Lori has another comment. Good question on boats and ways, since DOT/Coast Guard is under Homeland Security. It seems that the pathways, ocean roads, may be established in the future, similar to drone skypath use, where boats would be off limits, buffer zone, and enforceable. Any comments on that, David?
I know that one of the locations that was recommended is off of Kehi Lagoon and the south ramp, where all of the freight companies are. And I think that there is discussion on, even though the vehicle may cross under the reef runway, that there's going to have to be some coordination with FAA.
And then Auntie Lori added, also similar to the ocean windmills, enforceable buffer zone where fishermen are restricted, and fish ocean underwater cages, same thing, off limits to all. Maybe getting at the impacts of restricted zone, or the creation of restricted zones as a result of this project. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think designated flight patterns for this vehicle could be established, and that's some of the feedback that we're looking for. So that's very good.
We'll take a second. If anybody had questions or comments, Jenny, go ahead. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. I do. I actually kind of have two questions, and they're more just clarity questions. David, thank you for your information. I took some notes here. You mentioned a few things, and a lot of the words I'm hearing are words like probably, about, going to be, considering, looking at. At what point do you think those words will change to will or are? And then also another thing is, you showed us a couple of slides that had pictures and images of logos of organizations. And you mentioned that you spoke to all the environmental and all the cultural entities. And just for clarity, those that you listed are folks you've spoken to, or folks that support the project?
That we've spoken to. There are still some environmental groups like Maui Tomorrow that we have reached out to, but we have not got a meeting with. Aloha Aina Economic Futures, we've reached out, but we've not gotten a meeting with yet. So there are some, but I don't think they are up on the screen because we haven't been able to connect. And the reason I'm using those words is because unless the people of Hawaii really want this won't come to Hawaii. So, we really need to find out if this is something that the people of Hawaii are actually interested in. And again, Regent, as the manufacturer, is not going to operate this vehicle in Hawaii. They're hoping that they can have this dialogue with the communities so that they can go to a Hawaiian Airlines and tell Hawaiian Airlines, the people are really interested in this. They want to see, an effort made to bring it here, as well as Mokulele and Young Brothers.
Auntie Ui, you're welcome to unmute.
Aloha mai. Thank you so much, David, for that presentation. So just first one of my questions, has anyone expressed opposition? And if so, what were the main themes that you're here?
So I did get a question from Sierra Club on Maui, and they wanted to know if electromagnetic field would be created because we're using electric engines, and would that be detrimental to the passengers? So we actually looked into that and got back to them. There's not going to be any problems with that.
Okay, just in a general comment and feedback is, when you build a road, people come whether they have the right code of conduct to be in that space. And it's good to hear that there is going to be, restrictive and, designated areas that for flight patterns. And I encourage, if this comes to about that happened first and solidified, don't implement something, because we have these developers that any challenge that the infrastructure doesn't currently exist in isolated areas, that they will build them. Money is not an issue. So right now you've identified that, there's harbors that will take this, but they will build harbors in remote locations that are natural restricted areas. Nature provides their protection right now, and we're holding on to that. And we're the extension of making sure as stewards to make sure that they stay there and in that way. And so I caution you just to make sure that everything's in place if it should move, because that's my big worry, is that there is no price tag that people will create that. We have development in our backyard that wants to happen with a helipad coming in. It was like, and whether that, even doesn't happen, this will just be another resource to bring in their play toys and their play friends into remote areas that they don't belong. I like the idea that potentially this plays in the space of emergency situations and assistance, but putting restrictive use for those reasons are maybe advantageous for us and very viable options, but letting it be, something that's easy, not just somebody goes shopping and like, I want that, and I will put it in my place, and I want to build my own remote location in restricted areas right now. Yeah, that's my worry. People who want to use it for their advantage, because that was not highlighted in your presentation. I was looking for how people would take advantage of it and put it in with a use that it's not intended for. But that happens all the time. Oh, it wasn't intended for that. We'll just change the code and then move things along and implement it. And so that's my worry. But mahalo nui. I will look forward to watching the progress of this and watching the feedback as everybody else that you have in play is evaluating what this means for us. So,
Yeah.
Aloha.
Aloha. Your question is very important. I mean, we're working with the Department of Transportation, and from everything I've seen, it's going to be very restrictive, even within the existing harbors. And because the state has jurisdiction of all the shorelines, I would think it'd be very hard for anybody to, create. And I know it's been done, where somebody gets an idea, hey, we can do it. Um, we talked to Kamehameha Schools, their resiliency department, and, they're redeveloping the Keoho area. And I was a little concerned because I'm very familiar with Keoho. My family's originally from Captain Cook. And so, but I don't think the state is going to allow that based on the conversations that we've had with them. But I know everything is possible. So,
Mahalo. I guess question, public consultation, and is there a process to understand if or what is needed to share that the public said it's okay and Hawaii wants this? Is that
so,
understood?
so there's two phases. The initial feasibility study, where we're getting feedback right now, right? But when you go into the EIS phase, you got to go back out to the communities, and the community, you got to have public forum for the communities to voice. So there's actually two phases for the public to voice their concerns. And that's why Regent right now has got me to go out there and talk to everybody and address these issues.
Got you. Mahino, you can ask and then I'm gonna go back to the chat. Thanks, Mahino.
Hi, David. Thank you for your presentation. So I think maybe a statement and then a question. I think it's too soon to say that there's no threat to marine life. That is my main concern, among a few others. When you step in the ocean with your foot, you're a threat to marine life. So, but also that humpback whales can breach 30 to 45 feet. And you said that the plane thing flies about 30 to 60 feet. So that is, something of concern. The use of sonar is concerning with the impact to marine mammals. I would recommend consulting the Kia'i Kanaloa group, which is a Native Hawaiian practitioner group of marine mammal response and protection. My question is a little bit separate from that statement. I'm curious to know what would happen if the craft breaks down in the middle of the channel on a rough day. What would the response procedure be, and what entity would be responsible for the recovery or the rescue?
I don't have a answer for you. The vehicle would land in the channel, and I believe the response or rescue would then be the Coast Guard. But don't hold me to that. That's just, and for this Kanikanaloa group, is there a contact that you might be able to send me so that we can reach out to them as well?
Hey, David, this is Kevin. Yeah, we're in contact with them. In fact, we're just talking with Kino. He's been starting to talk with them, and we probably would send this video to them. We can also send them your email contact if you wanted to touch base with them as well.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Mahalo. I'm gonna go back to the chat. There's some statements and questions. Kai Lucas, it wasn't clear to me, sorry, if is there a mandate for non-fossil fuel use? Renewables, according to some, include liquid natural gas, or is that up to the operator? We don't know yet.
It isn't a mandate, but we learned early on in talking with all the environmental groups, unless we address this with renewable energy, they're going to come out in force against any type of vehicle that's not using renewable energy.
Gotcha. I'm gonna read a couple statements from Auntie Lori. Region is targeting Molokai, Lanai small districts, rural areas where subsistence is critical. This proposal will definitely have impacts. And can you expound on military?
I don't cover military at all, so I wouldn't be able. I know there is interest from the military, even the unmanned vehicle, like the prototype you saw in the video. We have been trying to reach out to Molokai because we wanted to share this and get their feedback as well. I know Auntie Lori is one of the ones that I've tried to reach out to. So I think scheduling time has been really tough.
Yeah. One more about private harbor and the use of private funds can bypass oversight. The state does not have 100% of the shoreline. Example, Kapolei lagoons, etc., are private developments. PEIS should be done because of the multi-jurisdictional and island-to-island proposed actions. And then Jenny has a comment. Folks say yes to the questions of would they like to see alternatives to transportation that use renewable energy, it does not mean they agree to this particular vehicle. Also, there are way more environmental and cultural entities out there to consult. And then Auntie Lori says, agree, Jenny, Coast Guard, Mahino. Some other comments. Any reaction to that, David?
Yeah, Ko'olina is, you're right, Ko'olina is a private harbor. I think we've been looking at actually Kalailoa because the state had jurisdiction over that.
David, is it okay with you when we're done with this? Take the link and we'll send you our link too. But we'd send this link on to KUA Kanaloa and our networks and maybe others who might be interested. And you're fine with us including your email in case you want to they want to touch base with you.
Yes, please.
Okay, mahalo.
Sweet. Is there a chance we could get a copy of the PowerPoint as well? Or
Yeah, I can send that to you.
yeah. So they can get the PowerPoint and then it's also in the recording, but Uncle Damien, another question. Go for it.
Yeah, David, is there an estimate of how many flights you're planning to use for this project on a daily basis? Maybe say from Kona or from Honolulu.
Yeah, that's actually going to be left up to the operator. The hope is that they're going to replace their conventional vehicles with this to help reduce the carbon footprint. So that's the hope.
But I heard you mention that Hawaiian Airlines is on board with this. Wouldn't that be cutting into the profit margin?
It depends on how they price this. It should actually reduce their operational costs, and hopefully they're going to pass that along to the people. And so they have made an investment in Regent, and they are involved in the design of the larger vehicle. They wanted the 100-seat vehicle. So, hopefully if there is interest, they're going to continue to follow through and hopefully place an order for the larger vehicle.
Yeah, just one more question. Flying that low, I'm concerned about the aquabirds and the seabirds on the ocean. How can radar or sonar detect them in time to avoid them?
Yeah. We are working on that. I don't have an answer for you, to be honest, because that is a concern. Any bird strike could be detrimental. So I know that the engineering team is working on some type of avoidance system.
Going Uncle Reggie, you can unmute. Oh, maybe I'm gonna unmute you. You see him in the bottom. Oh, going.
Right there. Can you hear me? Hello. My name is Uncle Reggie. I'm from KOA Kona. My question is, it sounds like you folks don't have a place of landing that's permitted already.
No.
But you guys are going ahead with trying to bring this new venture into Hawaii. Do you folks have approved areas where you guys gonna land in all this in our island?
No, so the feasibility study, the second phase of the feasibility study is going to identify what's going to be the best location, harbor-wise, based on sea state and other factors, access to renewable energy, parking, and all of those. Then after that's done, an EIS has to be done. And only then will they start to determine where the landing of these vehicles would be in relationship to those harbors.
So right now, what do you? I mean, do you guys are gonna just wait until all that is completed? You folks have any places that you guys looking at that, especially on a big island? I mean, it's the furthest island away from the Honolulu airport. So
right now, they're looking at Kauai and Hilo Bay, but till we go through the feasibility and the EIS, we're not going to have a firm decision on that.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe a question about mooring. Do they go in a hangar on land? Do they stay out in the ocean when they're not in use? Any of that?
One of the proposed facilities, and again, this has to go through the EIS process, is to be able to bring the vehicle in to a covered area near to the dock. So we're still looking at where this could be possible.
Auntie Lori has another comment on here. Like T and E species protected by law, birds that are not protected will probably not be subject to takings protections. Also, how would they collect data on bird and wildlife strikes if not voluntarily? Because aku birds are not a protected species, unlike bats when struck by windmills that is money that gets paid out. Yeah.
No, that's a good question. We are talking with someone at University of Hawaii specifically to collect atmospheric information off of the surface of the ocean, but I don't think that's included in that. So I don't have an answer for that. That's a good question.
One more I'm gonna read. I'm gonna try to read this. The vehicle might come in to be protected like any other vehicle from storms, so there needs to be out of water storage. Jenny says too many unknowns, seems like the cart before the horse. And then I'm gonna pass to Auntie Uwe.
Yeah. Are there wind conditions by which would keep them from not taking off or going into flight? Because we know between the channels is just they can switch, especially on west side of Hawaii. I know every island has those kind of, and we know that because of how we kilo our area. And we're Mauleao Honua of that area. But are there any restrictions and weather conditions that will keep them from not operating?
Yeah, there are definite wind conditions very similar to conventional aircraft that would come into play. Because we're hoping not to land in the channel. That's why the sea state in relationship to these harbors are going to be critical in terms of identifying. Ideally, you want to land in a protected harbor, but we still need to go through that process and through the feasibility study and the EIS to make final determination.
Yeah, because quite high, I mean, we get strong enough winds where it tosses those mats and containers like plastic containers. I mean, that happens a lot.
That was brought up with Young Brothers when we talked with them. Yes, that and Kahului.
Yeah. And then Mahina has a good question. What about night flights? Is there restriction on daylight hours, or will they be able to do night flights as well? Are they planning to?
That would really be up to the operators. The vehicle can fly at night. We have actually proposed freight at night, but that's going to be really determined by the operator.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Mahalo. Any other questions or comments, reflection? I'm gonna just pause and give anybody space. Auntie Lori says, we know Wa'okami birds need dark skies and use them as paths to nest in the forest. This is why military North Shore training on Molokai is horrible. Yep. Okay, well, I'm gonna hold out 1 minute. If there's any questions, feel free to unmute or add to the chat. It's an interesting project. I mean, thank you, David, for coming and sharing with us. A lot to learn about and be aware of. So thank you for coming in and taking the time. We'll share these recordings with our networks and look forward to hearing from you and connecting with you in the future in some way. Yeah. So mahalo, everybody. Yeah, mahalo, David.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the questions. Very good questions. Thank you.
Solid. Mahalo, guys. I'm going to stop the recording.